Today, the Epstein files dropped, but it's a large nothing burger. Sorry, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Smash the like button on your way out. And there's no, no, I'm kidding. So, surprised was I when I see this photo of the White House with a ton of influencers, many of whom, like, I think every single one of them have been on the show, and they're all holding up binders. The Epstein Files Phase 1. Well, sure enough, an unnamed source reached out to me and basically gave me the entire scoop on how this all went down. This was not a planned event. I believe none of the influencers went to the White House knew they would be handed this packet, this binder. The information was embargoed until a certain amount of time, though some people still were able to, did leak and release the information ahead of time. The information released is new, a lot of it, but it's largely being viewed as not much. Now, the real story is that the AG Pam Bondi released a letter effectively saying the Southern District of New York FBI field office has gone rogue, has ignored her orders, defied her as the AG, and refused to turn over evidence and thousands of pages of Epstein documents. There's a lot of conspiracies swirling around how this went down, but based on the information that I have gathered from numerous individuals, this looks like a stunt of some sort. That there was an intention to drum up some PR around the Epstein files. And there's a few theories. One, that the SDNY has gone rogue, and thus the AG is trying to find a way to generate public sentiment that would allow them to make a move against them to get these documents. According to this letter, the Epstein files should be in the hands of the AG by tomorrow at 8 a.m., but that doesn't mean they will be released. Another view is that this stunt was done to buy time for the AG to be able to go through these documents or delay their release. And lastly, the big conspiracy is this stunt was performed to throw SD and Southern District of New York under the bus so that they can later claim the documents had been destroyed. As we had already heard earlier in the week, a whistleblower said the FBI had been destroying Epstein evidence. Then, a week from now or whatever, as the conspiracy theorists believe, Pam Bondi or someone in the government's going to come out and be like, oh, they've destroyed all the evidence. We really don't know. But I'm going to give you the full details the best I can. We also have a bunch of other news, of course. We've got a crazy story about a trans individual who was arrested trying to plant bombs at a Tesla dealership, which we'll talk about for sure. And I got to be honest, we're largely going to be going over much of this Epstein stuff. Kash Patel is chiming in. We've got information on Thomas Crooks. There's potentially had an accomplice. A lot of stuff is coming out. We'll go through all this. Before we do, my friends, I want y'all to go to timcastpremium.com. Check out Rumble Premium, and we've got the Green Room show. You can check out all of our Green Room behind-the-scenes shows at rumble.com/Timcast IRL for premium members only. And for everybody who watches this show, we have the uncensored call-in show. That is Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. You get to watch uncensored behind the scenes, or I should just say uncensored, and call in and talk to us if you're a member of the Discord. And this is premium content only. We also have full-length documentaries available at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. So support Rumble. This is becoming the premier video podcasting platform with huge moves coming up. We've got a ton of premium members-only content. And when you sign up, you not only get Timcast content, you'll get Russell Brand, Steven Crowder's Mug Club. You're going to get Dr. Disrespect. So there is a massive library of content waiting for you guys. Go to timcastpremium.com. Sign up now. Don't forget, pick up some Cast Brew coffee. Look at Alex Stein. You know he loves it. Unfortunately for all of you, Ian's graphene dream is sold out. But if you go to the website and search, you can find Focus with Mr. Bocus. Sound like hotcakes. Everybody wants a bag with that beautiful picture of that cat on there, as well as Misty Mountains, a delicious Costa Rican blend. Appalachian Nights, of course, still everybody's favorite. And of course, you can also go to boonieshq.com. I recommend you get the 28th Amendment skateboard. The right to keep, bear, and breed chickens shall not be infringed. Look at that doodle. Tell me that is not the greatest chicken doodle ever drawn. It's beautiful. Smash the like button, my friends. Share the show with everyone you know. And I do mean it right now. If everybody, you took that URL, you copied it, you pasted it on all your social media, we'd be the biggest show in the world. And considering we've got some insider information on what went down at the White House, I'm going to tell you the full details, the full story. I was actually in contact with several of these individuals, as many of them are friends of the show. And it looks like a setup. Oh, yeah. Wait till you hear this one. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more, we have Amber Duke.
Hi, everybody. Amber Duke here. I'm the senior editor for the Daily Caller, the co-host of Free Media at Reason, and the co-host of The Hills Rising. You can check out my book, The Snowflakes Revolt, How Woke Millennials Hijacked American Media. Glad to be here.
We also have Mary hanging out.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. You would normally find me on Pop Culture Crisis here at Timcast. Please like me.
What's up, everybody? My name's Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
You liked that.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with the letter in question. So earlier today, I saw this viral photo of many individuals that were holding up these Epstein binders. Can we pull this one up? So this is a letter that was accompanying the binders themselves. It's a letter from AG Pamela Bondi. And it reads, "Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with the law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know that we are both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president and our country." Now, the information that's come out so far has since been published on justice.gov. Attorney General Pamela Bondi releases first phase of declassified Epstein files. When the files first were released in these binders, the individuals at the White House were instructed there would be an embargo. And this means, for those that aren't familiar, you cannot release this until a certain date or time. It was supposed to be a couple hours after they received these binders, they could start releasing information. Many people began to wonder why it was. A number of these influencers had very similar statements about transparency and the greatest, most transparent administration, despite not actually releasing any of this information. Later on the day, only a few hours ago, several of these individuals began to scan and publish these files. Interestingly, as an aside, I saw Laura Loomer working very hard to get these documents released, working with Chaya Raichik, who had one of these binders, and they kept getting suspended on these various platforms for some reason or another. They did eventually get released, and then we actually have the Justice Department publishing all of the information, which are largely flight logs, an evidence list, a contact book, and a masseuse list, which is presumably victims. Let me give you the quick breakdown as it was told to be by a couple different individuals who attended. You may have seen the photos. Actually, I wonder if I have the photo I can pull up somewhere. I do, in fact, have one of the photos. This is an image of, we got DC Drano, we got Chaya Raichik, we've got Liz Wheeler, Mike Cernovich, all holding up these binders that read Epstein Files Phase 1. Now, I've spoken with a handful of these people. Some are very happy, some are a little bit perturbed. It appears that this was a PR stunt. So let me give you the breakdown. This was not a planned event as far as I know. You may be thinking, how come Tim wasn't there at that event? Well, it wasn't a planned event. This was, at some point, several individuals were invited to do a meet and greet and talk with the press team in the White House. None of them had any idea that they would be handed, or at least as far as I know, the individuals I've spoken to, none of them had any idea that they'd be handed these binders. When they were told that there was an embargo until something was going to happen related to the release, so don't show off anything that's in it. Now, the question then becomes, how do these photos emerge? Well, I can only assume, based on the fact the White House has numerous exits and the fact they handed very big binders to prominent conservative influencers, The intention was to lead them out where the press was and get the press to take all of these photos, thus creating a massive press storm for this. At the same time, this letter was released and ended up dropping earlier than the embargo was supposed to be. And the letter doesn't need to exist. Many people have rightly questioned this. Why would the Attorney General write a letter to Kash Patel where she literally says, "I talked to you yesterday"? You don't need to do that. She could simply send him a text message. That would imply the purpose of this letter was to create public notification that with the release of this letter and conservative influencers getting access to it, the public would be made aware that the Attorney General is deeply angered by the fact that the Southern District of New York, the FBI field office, was intentionally withholding Epstein documents in defiance of the AG's order. There's a lot of conspiracies running around as to why this is. I'm going to go with Occam's razor. I believe SDNY is deeply corrupt. This is the same office that was going after James O'Keefe. This is New York, where they went after Trump with fake criminal charges. I do not believe these people are honest, and I believe that it is reasonable to assume FBI New York has gone rogue. That is, they're defying the orders of this elected government and the Attorney General. And thus, if I was going to make an assumption, obviously, I think it's fair to say this is a PR maneuver. That's why the letter exists. Otherwise, it doesn't need to. Having these influencers with millions of followers plus combined being photographed by the press in every direction, that can't be an accident. I think what happens is Pam Bondi knows SDNY is rogue and is defying her orders and instructions. But how do you deal with these people if she comes out and says, "We are going to send in the troops and go raid this office"? First of all, you're going to get a huge backlash politically. It's going to generate confusion. And more importantly, they may scramble and begin to start destroying files. A move like this can put scrutiny on the office, making it very difficult for them to move things in or out without getting public attention, as she has just called them out directly as the office. Simply put, I believe that Pam Bondi wanted there to be a major press storm pertaining to the rogue office in New York to give them public support for actions against them so Kash Patel can move in without any kind of backlash, without any kind of evidence destruction, or at least to the best of their abilities, they could move in. I don't know for sure, but there are some people who believe the purpose of this is to scapegoat the Southern District of New York FBI office so that in the coming days, when they eventually do not release the Epstein documents, which everyone's been demanding, they can say the evidence has been destroyed, find a scapegoat patsy of some random lawyer or analyst and say, he did it. And then who knows why. But I don't know for sure, so I'm curious what the panel thinks.
Well, I was talking to Chad Prather earlier, who was one of the influencers who was there. I actually ran into him on my way to Newsmax in the elevator, and he was confirming what you said, that he did not think that he was going to the White House to get the Epstein files. They were there to meet with Vice President J.D. Vance to talk about messaging for the administration and the conservative movement, and basically this got dropped on their laps. They told them that they weren't supposed to open these binders until after they left the White House, but one thing of note in here in these pictures that I'm seeing is that they're being escorted back from the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which is right next door to the White House and is where a lot of these meetings take place. And they go right to this area, which is known among the press corps as the sticks, which is where when foreign leaders, other politicians go to meet with the president, they will leave through the Oval Office door that's right there on the left where the Marines are standing. And the sticks are where they do interviews with the press. Yep. And that's where they took the photo out.
So wait, they could have walked them out any other exit.
They could have taken them out through the EEOB street exit, or they could have just kept going past the press tents, what's known as Pebble Beach, where all the green tents are, where the correspondents do their interviews. But they took them over to the Oval where the sticks are and then had this huge photo op.
So it's a stunt.
Obviously.
But what's the purpose of it?
I'm not as optimistic as you that this was all to just call out the SDNY. I think Pam Bondi overpromised a bit because she was on Jesse Waters last night talking about how this was all so sick and the first batch was going to come out, but she didn't hint that this was going to be a nothing burger. I mean, if you look at the masseuse list, for example, the entire thing is just blacked out, which is understandable because these are victims, right? You can't put out their names, but then all of the addresses, phone numbers, everything is all redacted. The only thing you get are the names in Epstein's address book. This is a guy with tons of money, tons of influence and access. Of course, everybody is in that access book, so it doesn't really tell us anything. The only thing of note, which Chad admitted to me, was this letter in the front of it that they wanted to put out. But I think it's a simultaneously putting the burden on SDNY, but also the Trump admin a little bit covering their butts because they have been promising these documents. I feel like if she didn't have the 1,000 documents that she's talking about on her desk, then she shouldn't have been making this big show of it until she had access to them.
And that's interesting. Because I'm going to say it again, Occam's razor. What is the simple solution here? And what I should say is, it bears clarification. In the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. That is, Pam Bondi overpromised on TV, probably unscripted. What was she, Jesse Waters, or when she said, "I've got it on my desk"?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just, you're on TV, there's no prompter, you're in the heat of the moment, and you just say, "Look, I got it on my desk," and they're like, "You do?" And then she went, "Oh, crap, I've got some flight logs on my desk."
Right.
Realized it was a big nothing burger and needed to figure something out. That seems to make sense. However, it's not necessarily the simplest of solutions. We know that, look, Southern District of New York went after James O'Keefe. This is the same. It's not the same office necessarily that went after Trump, but it is New York in this same jurisdiction, essentially, at the state level, that went after Donald Trump with false charges. I am not surprised in the least bit to hear that the AG requested documents and they did not turn them over and are resisting, because of all of the offices, this is the one that's presumed to be the most, well, there's two. The DC field office and I believe SDNY were considered to be deeply corrupt. So I do believe it is entirely possible that Pam Bondi was like, she got a call. Well, actually, let's pause. She did go on TV and said, "I got the Epstein list on my desk." But the story is also that it wasn't until last night, I believe, that she got a call from a whistleblower saying there's more documents. So she did promise this would be it.
I think it's fair to say that the SDNY is probably doing what she's accusing them of. But I would say, she did a press conference, I think it was last week, announcing that she was filing these charges against Letitia James and Kathy Hochul and the DMV guy in New York. And that got tons of press attention. So I don't know why she couldn't have done the exact same thing to levy the charges against the SDNY. Why do you have to trot out the influencers with this binder?
I just did a quick search on this. This is the office where they were going after Eric Adams. And when Pam Bondi and the Trump administration instructed them to drop the charges, they started resigning en masse. Like, these people are deep, leftist ideologues. Maybe there's nothing related to the Epstein list. Maybe they're trying to find a way to purge out this ideologically driven office. Who knows?
Could be.
But I'll tell you, they're claiming Pam Bondi says you will, or the FBI will. She's basically telling Cash, like, "I'm your boss. I want the FBI to give me these documents tomorrow morning." The question is, tomorrow, 12 hours from now, are they going to get them?
I don't know. I really hope they do. I think there's a lot of people that are going to look at this and they're just going to feel like the administration is dodging.
Yeah.
And regardless of if substance doesn't come soon. And I think that this even overshadows the letter that she sent to New York's Southern District, which I do think that they're it's likely that they're covering stuff up. They're trying to protect people that had have been, somehow broken the law or whatever. But I think that it's a bad look to do the whole.
I've got a clarification and a correction. I just did a quick search. The Southern District of New York has conducted multiple investigations involving Trump, the Michael Cohen investigation, the inaugural committee investigation, attempts to influence SDNY. So the Cohen thing is particularly interesting. In August 2018, SDNY prosecutors charged Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, with campaign finance violations related to hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. So that is the hush money case that they've brought against Trump. I believe that was at the state level, though. I could be wrong. It all. My apologies, but so much has happened. It kind of just muddles together,
Yeah.
The theory that this is some kind of 4D chess scheme on Pam Bondi's part against SDNY just doesn't hold up, in my view. I think it's true that she overpromised, and maybe an unintended consequence is that people are realizing the corruption of SDNY. But I do not believe the narrative that she was planning this whole press manipulation all along to turn people's attention. And even if she did, it's clearly not working, because the main narrative that I'm seeing so far is that people are angry at her and at the Trump administration for overpromising and what appears to be lying to the public about what they were going to get access to. And that's what I'm mad about. It also doesn't justify the fact that the House Judiciary official account for the House Judiciary GOP rickrolled us.
Yeah,
literally.
that's really bad.
First of all, that's not even a funny meme in 2025. It's been like 15 years since anyone thought that was funny. But second of
still
all,
barely did.
that is so deeply disrespectful, not only to the people who voted this administration into power, but also deeply disrespectful to the victims of child trafficking that are in question.
Let me pull this up. We have this tweet from the House Judiciary GOP breaking Epstein files released. And there's a link here. Should I click the link? I click the link. And it redirects to tiny URL, which redirects to YouTube. I love how they blocked the Rickroll. They're like, don't do it. Don't click it. Okay, we get it. This lit people up.
Yeah.
4.5 million views. George Alexopoulos, a.k.a. G Prime 85, says, women were raped. The monsters who organized and participated still walk among us, and you're joking about it.
4.5 million views and 6.1 thousand likes.
Like, this is not a good look.
No, not at all. Absolutely
So
not.
even if this was some kind of like grand scheme that Pam Bondi formulated to turn media attention to state corruption, it's not working. It just makes you look like an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, there are people in my mentions on Twitter that are just like, "Yo, let Tim know that everybody's blah blah blah." That are like genuinely angry about this
But
situation.
then there are other people who are coping and they're like, no, it's actually hilarious if you really like squint and tilt your head and think about it.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
No,
it's
not at
not
all.
funny at all. And then there are other people, when I pointed this out, saying like, oh, well, someone's jealous that they weren't invited to the wedding.
Oh, that's
Oh,
so
God.
annoying.
Now, I will
Oh,
say,
right. I'm
a
just
lot
jealous.
of people are jealous. They were not invited to this thing. Absolutely.
There were people who were. I would say on the influencer side, though, I mean, I know a lot of these people. I'm friends with a lot of these people. I like them. I respect them. If I had gotten this document, I would have been immediately scanning everything as quickly as possible, and I would have had a link with all of the documents in it ASAP. Like, I would not be posting repeated pictures. I would not be posting the press statement from the White House about how this is the most transparent administration in history. Give people the information. Like, I'm not trying to wait for libs of TikTok to go through and give me the highlights. No offense.
I mean, who cares about that? Get invited to the White House. I'm sure it was a lame party anyway. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
Look,
stupid.
that line, though, the line that they kept repeating about this is the most transparent administration in history, it was copy and pasted. It sounded like, this is why I don't think it was necessarily something they were blindsided by. It sounds like something was sent to them in an email for social media deliverables.
They were blindsided. I look.
And why are they copy and pasting the same statement over and over all over the timeline?
So first, I will say this: it's not that I'm jealous that they didn't invite me; it's that I'm hurt. It's like
disappointed.
my friends
Not angry.
flew
I'm just
in
disappointed.
to DC and didn't tell me they were coming, and I'm calling people. I'm like, "Bro, are you in DC? Like, come on, man!
Not
Like,
in the
at
cool
least come
kids
get a
club."
burger with me. I don't care about the White House. How could you guys? No, but I talked to a handful of people, and this is why that actually is genuine. I believe they were blindsided by this. A handful of these people are good friends of ours, friends of the show. And I asked them, and I was like, hey, like, what went down today? And they were like, we had no idea this was happening. And like, some of my friends were like, bro, if they told us we were going to do something, I would have hit you up immediately and said, bro, come quick. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, it's whatever. Like, the only thing that I was saying is, come on the show, man. But everybody's flying out. Everybody's like, I can't because we're leaving. We came in here for a meet and greet. I do believe that most of the people had no idea this was going to happen. Now, the question is, why are they all tweeting the most transparent administration? Why are they all taking selfies? There's a reason why I think the people who got invited. I don't mean to be disrespectful to them, but they're not journalists. Now, some of them are, but they're largely personalities and influencers. They lean more towards the influencer space. But But I don't want to say that of all of them because I don't want to impugn anyone's honor. I think Mike Cernovich certainly does. He deserves half the credit for the breaking of the Epstein story in the first place because he worked, I think it was with the Mike.
Yeah.
He worked on this filing documents to get it released. So did, I believe it was the Miami Herald. I could be wrong. So some of these people there, you'll see they're not posting these selfies. But I think the strategy from the White House was, we don't want Amber Duke to show up, start scanning the documents right away. We want people who are going to be happy to be here, who are going to say, look, the message is we are being transparent. We are the most transparent. Here's the binder. Don't share anything that's in it just yet. And what are a bunch of these people going to do? Selfie, bang, look at me. I got a binder. People were straight up tweeting, I got a binder. And it's like, yeah, okay, dude,
that is like-
I don't care. What's in it?
Taking the selfie in and of itself is so ghoulish. You know, like there's no sensitivity. It's not sensitivity. There's no gesture at understanding the gravity of the situation.
I feel that I have to share this now to get ahead of it because this is a brewing scandal. I was forced to take a selfie with the Epstein binder
You were?
at
course.
Newsmax. I was mic'd up. I didn't know what to do, and I'm in a selfie with the Epstein binder, and I'm so sorry.
Like when did someone say like, hey, get a picture of the binder? Yeah, because the issue is
Tough look.
Well, this is PR strategy. So look, maybe Mary, you're correct that Pam Bondi didn't plan this 4D chess in weeks in advance, but certainly whatever happened today was pre-planned in that they made binders and made this letter to Cash. She could have literally called Cash and say, yo, WTF, like they're not giving me the documents. Get me those documents. Click. End of story. She drafted this beautiful letter and then gave it to everybody. That was a PR stunt for whatever reason, for whenever it was planned. It literally happened. Someone super chatted very simply, why was their messaging the same? They all just got out of a messaging meeting with Vance. They were going to meet with Vance about messaging. And Vance was probably like, we're the most transparent administration ever here, you know, and they handed the binders out and then everybody tweeted it. Literally not every single person tweeted, but a lot of them did. Not because they were told to do it, but because they were told it.
What, they just have peanuts for brains?
Well, you talk to them about that.
Just repeating the words that they heard.
Mary,
It sounds like it was in an email, in a PR packet that was given to the influencers
might have gotten-
ahead of time or afterwards.
Or like, yeah, they might have gotten a fact sheet after.
Yes. The email,
That's pretty
not in
common.
advance.
They'll do a briefing and then they'll send a fact sheet once you leave to help like inform your stories. That's what they do.
The people that I spoke to who were there, a handful of them, and they all told me the same thing, and they're not lying to me. Like, there's these are people that I deeply trust, that we've had on the show, that have confided in me crazy things in the past, that have said, you know, either something will be on background or off the record, and I maintain that privacy for a lot of these individuals. And I have heard the same story, even independent of what I was told. Amber had the same story from Chad being like, we didn't even know this was happening.
Well, in that case, I'm going to believe it was bullet points that were given to them after the fact.
That makes sense. A fact sheet or like talking points.
Yeah. And that's pretty standard.
Right. And not everybody tweeted the same thing, but a lot of them did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is an unforced error, and there are people that were already deeply skeptical of Pam Bondi. Now, they are a narrow group of people that are gun owners and 2A advocates and stuff. They were, you know, very skeptical of Pam Bondi, and I think that this did nothing to help that skepticism. And not that it's not the end of the world, but it does make the administration look kind of, you know, makes them look bad.
And now they really have to deliver now because this was bungled, and people are more focused on the influencer part of it than they are on what was in the files because the files had nothing in them. So if they don't release phase 2 or phase 3 and those are not bombshells, they're in trouble.
Yep. There are two potential outcomes, two principal outcomes from this that I think are most likely. One is tomorrow morning, someone, Cash or otherwise, they confirm the documents in full have been transferred to the AG's office and they're working on redactions or whatever, wherever that leads. The other is SDNY gets raided by the DC office or some law enforcement because the message that Pam Bondi has sent out is FBI's field office has gone rogue and has defied the orders of the Attorney General. If tomorrow morning they do not confirm receipt of these documents, they may as well say, we have no power. And the FBI office is its own agency, independent of our government.
Look, if Internal Affairs raids the FBI Southern District offices and stuff tomorrow, if they're gearing up for a full-on, FBI raiding the FBI raid,
How could they not?
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
Unless they say, we got the documents. And then if they do, it's going to be people outside screaming, rabble, 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 demanding the documents be published. So how do they navigate whatever this is? Whether it's an, what did you call it, unforced error?
Yeah, unforced error.
Either it's on purpose. The principal outcomes are going to be, it is substantially worse now that this story is so massive. It's a Thursday night. We shouldn't be getting this viewership, 4.5 million views on a stupid joke.
Yeah.
The attention on this is massive because people want the Epstein information. If SDNY does not deliver, or for that matter, if they do, and Pam Bondi says they didn't, people are going to be screaming outside of SDNY demanding law enforcement move in. So whatever happened today, it has created a tinderbox for tomorrow. Something has to happen.
Yep. This early in the administration, you don't want to have a significant, serious shake in faith, of the people actually doing things. I mean, I see you smirking, Mary. You're a skeptic of everything all the time, anyways, and you're like, let it burn.
It's also it's strange to me that this became happening in the first place because most people who voted for Trump don't care about the Epstein files. They just care about getting inflation under control and closing the border.
Yeah, I agree.
So why are we even, if you weren't planning to deliver on the promise, well, first of all, don't promise it in the first place, but also just shut your mouth.
Because
Unless it's real.
Unless it's real.
Yeah, unless Pam Bondi was like, hey, let's release the Epstein files, and SDNY lied to her, and then she found out they lied to her.
And
I'm
also
part of the Nothing Ever Happens gang.
Yeah.
Educated again.
So
I don't
look,
think that was ever planned.
You're right. It is kind of like it's a very, and I've said this before, it's a very narrow group of people that care about this. But the thing is, they care a lot. So there may not be, it's not a very broad group of people that are going to be like, yeah, we need to know. This is kind of red meat for a particular constituency, but those people are very invested and they'll be very vocal on the interwebs. And Donald Trump looks at the interwebs and he wants to please the people. Look what he did for TikTok. Like TikTok was in my opinion, it was a bad idea to say, oh, we're just going to go ahead and make a concessions for TikTok. But he did it because TikTok would be vocally against him. He wants people to like him. He wants to look on the internet.
Like me. He wants people to like him.
He does. He wants to look on the internet and see people saying nice things about him. So that's a big part of why he's doing this.
I will just say, outside of all of this, it is a fact. Okay, it's not literally a fact, but I think any reasonable person can conclude Donald Trump's administration hates SDNY with a passion.
True.
They went after him. They went after Eric Adams. Trump tries, they order him to drop the charges. They resign in protest. They file lawsuits to stop the dismissal of the charges. The craziest thing I ever heard is that the federal government was prosecuting Eric Adams. The DOJ cuts a deal with the mayor, which is par for the course in law enforcement every single day. A prosecutor will say, if you snitch, if you do this, if you help us with that, we'll drop the charges every day. And when the DOJ did it with Eric Adams, SDNY, they quit in protest. Lawsuits are filed, and a judge ruled they couldn't drop the charges they were prosecuting.
They're also trying to dismiss it without prejudice so they could bring the charges back at any time. So, yeah.
Like you're saying the Trump administration wanted that?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So if Eric Adams didn't play ball, they could bring the charges back. Or if he did play ball and they decided that the evidence was so serious that they needed to move ahead anyway, they could wait until the administration's coming to an end and they could bring them back.
It's not even a free pass.
No, it's not a free pass. But I will say, I've done briefings with DOJ officials on this issue, and they do believe that it was a politically motivated prosecution against Eric Adams, and they feel like the evidence is pretty thin.
I agree. When you look at the timeline on Eric Adams, let me do this. Let's start here before we jump into the Eric Adams stuff, because we did get a statement from Kash Patel. This is breaking from the Post-Millennial. Kash Patel vows to swiftly pursue those who undermine the FBI after AG Pam Bondi reveals FBI NY withheld Epstein documents. So Kash has posted this statement. The FBI is entering a new era, one that will be defined by integrity, accountability, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, and no stone left unturned. And anyone from the prior or current bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. If there are gaps, we will find them. If records have been hidden, we will uncover them. And we will bring everything we find to the DOJ to be fully assessed and transparently disseminated to the American people it should be. The oath we take is to the Constitution, and under my leadership, that promise will be upheld without compromise. So for those just tuning in, the conversation we're having is the Southern District of New York and the FBI field office are being accused of intentionally covering up Epstein documents, hiding them from the AG who ordered them. Now, we don't know exactly what's going on, but on the surface, the story is Pam Bondi was contacted by a whistleblower who said, the FBI office in New York is sitting on thousands of documents, audio and video, that they have not turned over to you. It's evidence. She then wrote a letter to Kash Patel, which seems very obvious was intended to be made public, saying, I demand that these documents be handed over to me and you assess what happened and why. The important context that we're getting into, the Southern District of New York has gone after Trump, gone after Trump's lawyers, and recently was going after Mayor Eric Adams. Amber just pointed out that you said you spoke with prosecutors?
Yes, DOJ officials who are trying to get the SDNY to drop the charges. This is, they're moving to have it dismissed without prejudice, which means that they could bring the charges again at a later date.
This is where everything gets crazy. The DOJ comes in under a newly elected Trump administration and says, Eric Adams, we want you to work with us, and if you agree to, we'll drop the charges for now. Eric Adams says, I will play ball. The DOJ then instructs the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office, to drop the charges, and they refuse. Several of these individuals in the office begin resigning in protest. A lawsuit is filed, and a judge decides, this is insane, no, you can't drop the charges you're pursuing. What? Who's going to prosecute it? The judge is now saying a special prosecutor is coming in. I think it is patently obvious. New York, the federal offices are no longer federal. They are rogue and operating under some kind of who knows what. Maybe the Democratic Party machine. I don't know, but they're obviously working in tandem with the state government, who also filed false criminal charges against Donald Trump and even falsely convicted him of that.
And this is not abnormal because under the Biden administration, the Richmond field office of the FBI got in trouble because they sent out a memo to field agents telling them to infiltrate traditional Catholic churches and TLMs, traditional Latin masses, because the people who attend those masses might become, quote unquote, domestic terrorists. And actually, that memo did spread to other field offices as well. And when Chris Wray found out about it, he claimed that he didn't know anything about it. I don't know how true that is. But still, it's not abnormal for these offices to kind of do their own thing and then get a slap on the wrist from the FBI headquarters. And the other thing on the Eric Adams case that I would mention too is that one of the complicating factors with these charges, which is why he's not capable of working with the Trump admin right now on deportations, is he's not allowed to have a security clearance.
Wow.
So he cannot look at arrest records or anything related to law enforcement of illegal aliens in New York because he doesn't have the clearance to do it. So that's the primary reason why they want the charges dropped, is so he can get his security clearance back and start assisting ICE, DOJ, FBI.
They've gone rogue. New York, from the federal offices to the state offices, appear to be operating independent from the federal government. I mean, the state obviously does. We get that. But the FBI field office, if this is correct in what Pam Bondi is saying, and the stories we have about the Southern District of New York Attorney's Office and Eric Adams, the investigations they've launched against Trump, this has become a political body that is no longer operating under the jurisdiction of the federal government and the DOJ. They're going to have to raid the building. They're going to have to terminate all of these individuals immediately, and they're going to have trusted FBI agents actually secure the building to make sure evidence isn't being destroyed.
Yeah, I think that's probably the next step. And it's not a surprise that New York is this kind of corrupt field office either. The way that they behave, towards the administration, it's not a shock in any way. So
I know, Mary, you said you're in the nothing ever happens camp, but as much as I do kind of agree with that, this past month has been a whole lot of happenings. A lot.
What else?
We can start from the beginning. I mean, RFK Jr.
In my view, this is a not happening. this whole
I mean, this is
story
happening.
not happening.
That's
because
crazy.
The files weren't released.
Yeah, but sure. But the AG just said the FBI in New York has gone rogue. I mean, talk about a happening if happenings could ever happen.
If they get raided, that's a happening.
Sure. Okay.
I have a high threshold.
Let's start with RFK Jr. just suspended a $460 million contract to make a COVID-19 vaccine. I mean, that's a happening. There's a bunch of little things RFK Jr. is talking about with chemicals in food, and we can roll our eyes and say, sure, I'll see when it happens. But yeah, the suspension of the, what's the Vaxart or whatever the name of the company is, this $460 million contract was just temporarily frozen. So a little happening there. You've got, first of all, Kash Patel just got in. Pam Bondi just got in. A lot of this is in the first month. Trump just issued an order this morning. It wasn't Trump personally, but the Pentagon, terminating from the military every transgender person. That's a happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. Now, I suppose if you're saying happening in the physical world where like people are like, I don't know, launching rockets into space and like riding, those gigantic bikes, the big wheels on them down the street, and you're like, this is crazy. Maybe we're not seeing anything, but in the administrative functions of government, it has been so many happenings, I've lost count.
I mean, the transgender stuff with the actually, you can look at just the military, and there's been a lot of stuff. The fact that Pete Hegseth is the SecDef, that's a big deal.
When I see executive orders, I just see something that's going to change in 4 years if there's a new administration in office anyway.
So you think legislation is more compelling than executive orders, which I would agree with. But you think that
like a lot of his executive orders in the first 24, 48 hours were just reversing executive orders that Biden did to reverse the executive orders that Trump did.
Trump has, I think, how many executive orders has Trump signed already? I believe he's
close to 1,000 probably.
I believe it's more than Biden, Obama, and Bush did in their entirety, or something like that. Like, it's in the first. I think Biden did like 3 or something, or 6, some like small number in his first day. It shocked people, and Trump did 100 plus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, serious happenings. Have to wonder what happens next. I mean, look, if New York, let's start here. I always love the time travel test. Go back to 2018 and say, in 2025, the AG will release a letter saying that the FBI offices are withholding evidence of a mass pedophile ring involving high-profile billionaires and celebrities. People are going to be like, what? They'll say, yeah, the FBI is sitting on documents they won't release because they're trying to release them to the public, resulting in conspiracies that the FBI offices are gone rogue. Now, I do have to mention, the Southern District of New York office had previously tried to prosecute Donald Trump, prosecute his lawyers. They tried to impeach him. The state of New York, then, with overlapping jurisdiction, accused Trump of a fake crime with no underlying crime. They upgraded a misdemeanor to a felony with no underlying crime, and then tried to put him in prison as he was running for office. I mean, the amount of things that have happened in the past year, if you went back 10 years and said this, people would laugh and say, are you writing a movie? And the funny thing is, whenever I do what I call the time travel test, it gets so much crazier. I mean, think about where we're at. 2 years ago, what if I said they're going to try the AG under Trump is going to try to release the Epstein documents, but the Southern District of New York and FBI office in New York are going to secretly cover up thousands of documents. People are going to be like, I don't know about that. Nothing ever happens.
I would have said that you were crazy if you told me that Trump was going to try to end birthright citizenship.
Oh, yeah, he did.
I mean, it's going to go to the Supreme Court, but that is a happening. I mean, there's a list, and forgive me, I'm doing the influencer thing now, but they did send a list out a week ago from the White House press office with a list of all of the actions taken in the first month of the administration. And it's a lot juicier than this Epstein binder, I will say. I mean, there's probably 100, 150 bullet points here. Granted, a lot of them are executive orders. But, I mean, we have border crossings at a record low.
Yeah.
Tons of cutting of waste, or at least pausing federal. I mean, we've paused all federal funding, especially foreign aid, which the foreign aid question was just held up by a court.
I'm sympathetic to Mary's view because I am of the opinion that legislation is what matters. Like you can talk a lot about, the executive orders, but you do have a point about like if they're executive orders, they'll just get overturned by the next guy. But I do think that things like DOGE and cuts to the various bureaucracies. I think that does matter. I also think that the American people are generally behind that kind of stuff, and I think that matters too. If you actually make these cuts and then you don't see negative repercussions from the cuts happening to your average everyday person, I think that you'll end up getting the legislation to make the cuts permanent.
I want to issue a clarification because we got a super chat from Jared Williams. Says, Tim, you leaked the Bondi letter first on YouTube, which you claimed was from an unnamed source. Didn't you sense that something was off with a leaked AG letter? No, 3 p.m. was the embargo time, and my video went live at 3 p.m. However, other individuals published the letter before the embargo was lifted at around 2:33. I know because I immediately got in contact with a couple of my sources on the ground, and I said, looks like the letter's already been leaked. So I did not leak it first. And on Twitter, on X, when I posted it, it was about 2 minutes after it had already been released by other third parties. So yeah, I take journalistic integrity very seriously. That is, my sources, if they ask not to be named, I won't name them. If they give me information on background, it's called, I won't name them. If there are individuals, there are circumstances in which you break these. If there's an embargo, I won't break it. Why? You want individuals to trust you, and we want to get the information to the public. If I've got people who are working in the White House and I say, you can't trust me, I'll defy anything you tell me, they'll not tell me anything, and I can't tell you anything. So you agree to some terms to try and maximize the amount of information you get, knowing the individuals setting those terms are doing so for their benefit. But it is better that we compromise on the exchange of information so that I can bring it to you as opposed to just give them the middle finger and get nothing. That being said, were I or Amber, as we had been discussing earlier, if we had gone to one of these meetings, we would have been like, the moment the clock strikes, we're publishing everything.
Yeah, I would have had a Scribd account with all of the documents in it with a scheduled set time to go live at 3. 100%. And it would have gone right on the Daily Caller website. And maybe I would have had like an accompanying post with the top 10 things that are in the Epstein files for those who don't want to read all the documents. But I would absolutely make them all available. No question.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I think that I think my opinion still lands as this was a bad move. It should have been, the AG's whatever it was that they decided to do. It doesn't make anybody happy. It doesn't satisfy anyone, and it just makes for an unforced error. It's just,
I hear you.
I still feel like we're not going to see the unredacted files.
I don't disagree. Like the idea that they would ever publish a list of powerful billionaires and movie stars and musicians that were involved in a trafficking ring, and we're going to expose these power structures, it feels like you live. It's like communist utopian level nonsense.
And I feel the same way about the JFK, RFK, and MLK documents. Like people who were getting all excited about that, I'm saying if you really think the CIA was involved in the assassination of these individuals, which by the way I agree with you, do we really think that they wouldn't have scrubbed the evidence of that like 30 years ago, and we're now 60 plus years on, and suddenly it's all going to come out and they're going to indict themselves?
Yeah.
There are other questions that still remain unanswered about more recent events. Like I'm waiting for the Stephen Paddock files.
Yeah.
Yep. Even after all these years, I'm still waiting on answering questions about that. Biggest mass shooting in U.S. history. And most people, if you mentioned it to them, would be like, I don't even know if I remember that. Like, it was completely memory hold.
And that probably also indicts the intelligence community in a number of ways.
Yeah.
We've got a very big story. Before we jump into that, my friends, smash the like button, share the show. And if you are watching, subscribe to this channel. It really does help. And become a member of Rumble Premium. Go to timcastpremium.com, sign up. We're going to have an uncensored call-in show coming up at 10 p.m. where we're going to take questions from the audience. And like I was saying, take the URL to this video, post it wherever you can. It really does help. If everybody watching right now shared, we'd be the biggest show in the world. Let's jump to the story from the Daily Mail. This is crazy, my friends. State Accident Insurance Fund CEO targeted in terrifying attack by hooded gunmen at his Oregon home. Now, we don't know exactly what this is, but this sounds very similar to what Luigi Mangione did. And considering how many leftists have been posting TikTok videos, wearing Luigi hats, demanding people engage in this kind of behavior, it was sooner or later we were going to story something like this. Take a look. An insurance CEO was targeted in a gun attack by a hooded gunman at his home in Oregon, with eerie similarities to Brian Thompson's murder in New York last year. The unidentified suspect took aim at State Accident Insurance Fund CEO Chip Terhune's $1.68 million home in Lake Oswego around 4 a.m. Friday. A grainy surveillance, 4 a.m. Friday? A grainy surveillance image released, Thursday, by Oswego police showed this, or was this last week? Gunman
Last week.
donning all dark clothes, the possible hoodie or ski mask. The perpetrator is believed to have fled the scene on foot, and as of Thursday, he remains on the run. 3 bullets shattered the glass of the CEO's front door and windows. The doors have since been boarded up with wood. The following day, Terhune informed staff at SAIF, a not-for-profit company that provides worker compensation in the state, that he initially thought rocks were being thrown at his home. Terhune, who is worth more than $764,000, honestly, it's a lot of money, but we're not talking about a guy worth $40 million like the CEO of that other insurance company. He sent an email to his more than 1,000 employees informing them the company received an email threat purporting to be from the person responsible. They got an image. This is crazy. Although it does not target any specific employee, the email references knowledge of employee and relatives' names and addresses. He further explained the sender attached a list containing some of the information sourced from internet searches, including many inaccuracies to the threatening message. He then attached that list to the employee email and said the company will reach out to them to share what information was dug up on them. So he clarified he isn't sure if he was targeted, but is now doing well and ready to work. We're looking at 2 big stories right now. This one, obviously, we saw this breaking last week, and now there's more information on it. Another CEO is attacked. We have seen the left, recently a story, this woman went on she went on TikTok and called for harm, called for people to end the life of Elon Musk. I believe a U.S. attorney responded that he'd be in touch with her. We're hoping there's justice in that regard. But the threats of violence from the left have been escalating. And my friends, hear me go to any one of these liberal podcast subreddits and just search the term civil war and see what these people are posting about. Search the term Luigi on any one of these subreddits. And what will you find? They're going to be saying things like Luigi was always my favorite Mario brother. They're going to be saying things like we need more people playing Player 2. They're making all of these references to them wanting death, murder, and destruction. Now we have 2 big stories. Another attempt on the life of an insurance CEO, which may be unrelated, but who knows? Considering the far left sentiment bubbling up over the past several weeks, months, or year, I would not be surprised to find it was related. And then we have claims, whether true or not, that the New York attorneys and FBI offices are rogue and not operating under the purview of the federal government. What are we looking at right now?
It seems like things are escalating. Look, this attack by on this other CEO here. Look, this is not a surprise. There are going to be more like this. There was the person that was shooting up a Tesla dealership, even though Musk isn't there. That was only symbolic. This right here is in the exact same vein. What?
Did we ever figure out what the motivation was behind the Cybertruck explosion?
No. And I want to stress this too, as Phil put a pin in it real quick. I'm just going to say another one of these stories is they just arrested a transgender individual that Fox referred to as a woman with explosives at a Tesla dealership. Mm-hmm. They've been shooting up Tesla dealerships, smashing them, vandalizing them, and trying to blow them up. But Phil, you were saying? Yeah,
it's a situation where this stuff is I strongly feel like this is going to continue to escalate. There are people like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball and Hassan Piker and et cetera. These people have been talking about the class war for ages. The whole of BreadTube has been talking about class war. And whether you're actually articulating, you should engage in violence or not, when you spew the rhetoric of a class war in the United States, that the reason that you're poor or the reason that you're dissatisfied, because it's really the situation, it's not about who has money and who doesn't. There are plenty of people out there that are poor, that even though they live paycheck to paycheck, they live fulfilled lives, that they love their families, they have other things in their lives that make them happy. But when you have an argument that is made constantly that the reason you are dissatisfied in your life is because of billionaires. That's the specific reason. And if we could just get rid of those billionaires, you would be happy in your life. You are going to get poorly adjusted people. You're going to get the mentally ill people that completely and totally dominate when it comes to the ground forces on the left. Those people will go out and act. And I'm not saying, you shouldn't be able to say this or you shouldn't be able to say that, but there is now a climate in the United States that it is acceptable, and to some people it is obvious, not that I agree with this, but it is obvious that the problem is that there are a handful of billionaires in the world. And the thought is, if we could just solve the billionaire problem, then we would solve whatever ails me. I'm trans and I'm unhappy. I'm whatever your disorder is will be fixed just by solving the billionaire problem. But and one more additional problem to that is the people that are dissatisfied, the people that are unhappy, they're not actually going to be able to find the billionaires. They're going to find people that are worth a couple $1,000,000 or people that just have more than they do.
So Ray Dalio had a conversation with Tucker Carlson, and he said, we're in a civil war. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, we're not in a civil war, and 10 being, I can see them coming around the corner, where would you guys think we are on that scale?
Let's say we're at a 5 or 6.
5 or 6? Oof. That's over the middle. What do you think? Mary's going to say 1.
Nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 1. That's a safe answer.
I
What would be the sides then?
What do you mean? Oh, the Civil War?
Civil war between
So Civil War.
territorial.
No.
They're usually never territorial. It's
political
ideological.
divisions. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So you've got like the populist, and then you've got the establishment forces. So if you look at how like the corporate press and the Democrats, the worldview they have, I mean, who's ever on the side of the FBI field office in New York versus the federal government? And they exist. Whoever these people are who are trying to bomb Tesla dealerships, they're organized. Antifa has cells all over the country. They pretend like they don't so that stupid people think they don't exist, but they do. They organize online. That's how there's a group we call the Tourists. Go to any one of these protests in, I shouldn't say any names for legal reasons, but we know their names. We know who they are. They are at every single protest across the country. And you're like, how did that person know to show up in Long Beach?
I've heard this exact same thing from other people who covered the riots in 2020.
Ask Richie McGinnis.
Exactly. He will tell you. He wrote about it in his book. And then the Daily Caller also reported on this other story. On Monday, the FBI's Houston office announced that they arrested someone by the name of Seth or Andrea Gregori after he allegedly plotted an attack against police similar to the 2016 Dallas ambush. He was making terroristic threats to the Houston Police Department, Corpus Christi Police Department. And what was really interesting about this story is that nobody seemed to blink an eye at the fact that this guy was known by both Seth and Andrea. So I was like, we should reach out to the police and ask if this was a transgender person. That seems pretty weird. And apparently it is. A CCPD officer said that based on information they received from the FBI, quote, it's our understanding that Grigori is transitioning. His driver's license indicates that he is male, but booking information from the Nueces County Jail, apologies if I mispronounced that, reportedly marks him as female. So he was trying to engage in a mass killing similar to what happened after the Michael Brown incident in 2016 in Dallas.
And then, of course, we had there was some breaking news on the Ziz cult today. I don't know if you guys saw
I'm not
that.
familiar with
saw
that.
it.
You're not familiar with the Ziz?
No, tell me about it.
This is the transgender leftist cult that
Oh, great.
They killed the border guard in Vermont.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago, they shot.
I did hear about that.
Shot and killed them. That's happening, Mary. far left
is this
transgender
like a-
cultists shot and killed a border
Is
guard
that
trying
a
to flee.
splinter group that came off of Antifa?
No, well, I believe
How did they originate?
they refer to themselves as Trantifa. Like that is the actual word they use for their group, transgender Antifa. It's not necessarily a splinter group. The left is all splinter groups that have what they call the diversity of tactics, and they coordinate. So how it works is there will be 10 people that live in Seattle, and they'll have some like gutter space they rent for dirt where they organize. When they want to set up a protest, they will put out messages to various forums and individuals. It's a splinter network. And then the tourists, we call them, these are people who travel around the world, not just the country, to foment and organize and provide expertise for protests. They provide legal strategies and obstruction strategies. So these tourists will go to these little hovels and provide materials, signs, rope, whatever they might need, and then through their network, put out a call to action to make their protests larger. That's why you end up seeing the exact same people in the front of every march in every different city in the country. Some people think they're feds, that they're working for the government to sow discontent for whatever reason. I don't know that that's true.
Who's funding it?
The government. Like, that's the conspiracy.
Well, aside from the conspiracy, like, is this some kind of NGO funded
Absolutely.
operation?
Well, so it's not an operation. There are operations.
Yes.
So one mistake a lot of conservatives often make is they'll say, George Soros is paying protesters to be here. Wrong. No, they're not. The Open Society Foundation provides grants to various nonprofits. During Occupy Wall Street, there were a handful of nonprofits that sent their employees down to help them organize. So how does Occupy get as big as it did? 3 or 4 people from various NGOs that were paid to be there put out flyers at universities, tricked them into showing up, and then took control of the organization to make big protests happen. So when the conservatives hear that NGOs are funding this, they say the protesters are paid to be there. Then the 22-year-old college kid who showed up bored for no reason says, I didn't get paid to be here. I don't know anybody who did. They're lying. And they use that to recruit more. They say, see, Fox News lied about you.
And they do the same thing with less violent methods too. So, for example, like the Satanic Temple, they had a protest at a Virginia school board meeting in Norfolk. I went down and covered it, and I saw a few of the people. You know, you can't miss them. They've got shaped heads, weird tattoos, pentagrams, all this crazy nonsense. And then I was looking at a story from a different Satanic Temple protest at a different school, literally halfway across the country. I can't remember what state it was in. And looking at the pictures, I went, I know her. She was at the Virginia protest. Why is she in Oregon or wherever she was at that time? And then the Free Beacon reported that all of these town halls that are popping off about Doge and Elon Musk in red districts are organized by George Soros, where they have multiple of his NGOs and nonprofits paying people and putting out targeted messaging on social media to encourage people to go to these town halls, telling them the details, the dates, the location, the phone numbers for the representatives, and they're showing up and basically trying to give the impression that there is this fomented opposition from within the Republican Party against Doge.
Right. And let's just clarify, George Soros is not personally doing any of this stuff.
Right. It's his...
He's got philanthropy wings. I believe his son is running them. They provide grants to various NGOs and nonprofits.
Right. Indivisible, Move On are a couple of them.
And then these nonprofits decide what to do. And so what I've personally witnessed, having covered this stuff for about a decade, is that you'll go to a protest and it's a bunch of random people milling about, no idea what's going on. And then there will be like 2 or 3 people and you're like, I've seen you in every major city I've ever been to. And they're like, right, I work for insert NGO. And you're like, and you're paid to be here. And they're like, well, this is part of our organizing. So yeah, this is my job. And then you're like, and then you went to all the universities, you put up flyers, you went on social media, you put out calls to action. Yep. And so all these people are here because of you. Yes. Okay. So you were paid to be here by an NGO to create this protest. And they go, right. Then what happens is the 300 other people, you go up to them and say the same thing, were you paid to be here? And they go, no. Why are you here? I heard about it on the internet.
Yeah. Phil, I wanted to say I'm glad that you brought up the bread tubers and these far left streamers and influencers, because they just think that this is all fun and games, and it's because they've been on a playground of no consequences this entire time. And the past decade, basically, the FBI has been paying special attention to right-wing extremists. Meanwhile,
and by right-wing extremists, they mean like parents that have the audacity to go to the PTA meetings and look at what their kids are learning.
They also mean right-wing groups that they infiltrate in order to get people to say or do incriminating things so they can get more convictions. But the left-wing streamers are the ones fueling this fire and making it a laughing matter. And I think that maybe something that the FBI needs to focus on as they're entering a new era is far left extremism, because there is an increasing, it's like some mixture of boredom and rage that is stirring up in a lot of people, and it's not going to be pretty.
So the things that you hear that actually bother people when it comes to, there's a lot of people that would say, oh, poor people are really are upset. And it's not that poor people are upset because or being poor makes people unhappy. That's not the case, because there are people that are in significantly poorer countries than the United States, and they live happy, fulfilled lives because things like family make you happy, right? Things like you having a fulfilled life, God, religion, your community, those kind of things are what actually makes people happy. Material things to a certain degree, like having the ability to pay your bills can add to stress and can make you unhappy. But once you get to a certain amount of money, more money doesn't actually make you happy. It's the reason that billionaires become billionaires is not because they want money. It's the drive to do the thing that they're doing, right? So it's the what's the phrase that I'm looking for? Income inequality that upsets people. When people can't pay their bills, right? But they have, the internet on their phone, but they're poor in America. They can't pay their bills, but they see people on Instagram or on the internet that live lavish lifestyles, or they hear, billionaires have all this stuff. They get upset that there is such an income inequality. That's something that will spur people to action.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
I don't even know if it's as cut and dry as that, because when we're seeing like a lot of these school shooters or mass shooters who've had their plans foiled, seeing like these half-baked manifestos that they write, I know that when I read them, it sounds like extremist political philosophy, but they don't even pick a side of the extreme to pledge allegiance to. It's like they're just a lot of the statements they're making in these manifestos don't actually make coherent sense with each other. It just sounds extreme in every last direction.
Right. That's why I say wokeness is just cult-like adherence to liberal orthodoxy. They don't actually have any logic behind their ideas, but for some reason they march in lockstep with each other.
So I'm not familiar with what you're talking about.
That female school shooter who she was in
Tennessee?
Wisconsin, I believe.
Okay, I don't know this one.
Right? Her name was Samantha something.
Oh, right. Yeah,
She wrote this manifesto that seemed like it was this radical feminist manifesto, but then she was also making statements that were like extremely racist at the same time. And it was this completely incoherent scattershot philosophy
But of course.
she seemed to have, but also she was practically, if this was written by her, practically illiterate.
Right. But this is not surprising at all that someone who would do something so psychotic did not have a functioning brain.
Yeah.
There's no logic behind the actions taken by these extremists because it doesn't result in anything that lends itself towards an ideology or any kind of goal. So it's not surprising that all of the manifestos tend to be garbled mishmash nonsense.
It's not even that I'm expecting it to be logical, but internally logical.
No.
And that's the thing I've noticed, like, just if you track what manifestos sound like and what they're trying to communicate over time, they're just getting more and more nonsensical as time goes on.
So the concern is when you look at liberal YouTubers, there's no logic in what they're saying. When you look at the corporate press, it's just lies and manipulation. I mean, let's talk about the price of eggs. They didn't care at all. Everyone was screaming about it. The moment Trump walks in, they scream the price of eggs. There's no logical pathway for what they're offering. Take a look at, you mentioned BreadTube, these communists and these Marxists on YouTube. They don't have a basic understanding of economics. AOC actually stated that a tax subsidy was a cash gift, which is an inversion of what it actually is. A tax subsidy is a discount. AOC doesn't know at all what she's talking about. So they rally people based on an incoherent, illogical state of being where they're angry at somebody, and they accuse Trump of doing that which they do. They are demagogues. AOC says, I have no idea what's going on or how the world works, but I'm angry, and if you're angry, be angry at him. They rally people in this direction, and it leads to violence against a Tesla dealership? Elon doesn't work at Tesla dealerships. Who are you mad at?
What's symbolic?
Joe Smith, who makes $40,000 a year cleaning the toilets of a car dealership? Why are you attacking these people?
It's the attack on the car dealership was symbolic, and it's probably more akin to, I'm not sure if this is actually true, but it reminds me more of the graffiti that you see than an actual attack on a person. You know what I mean? They want to destroy something, vandalize. It's more like vandalism. Sure, it's scary if they use firearms. That does make it more frightening. But that's the intent: frightening and vandalism, not actually hurting someone. But even still, like you were talking about, like the bread tubers and stuff. They want to go, they intentionally aim at people that are dissatisfied. And I've said this a million times. Happy people don't engage in revolutionary activities. It takes people that are upset.
They're idle and nihilistic.
Yeah, they're nihilistic, absolutely. And it was the same thing in previous eras when there were communist revolutions. You know, they told the average person in Ukraine that it was the kulaks' fault that there was no food, right? The kulak, that you're broke and poor because of the kulaks. The kulaks were the farmers that knew how to act, like they got the house and the cow that they had because they knew how to farm. They had some land they could farm. They were actually providing food, so they had a little bit of money. And then the communists told them, look, the kulaks, they have stuff. That's your enemy. They're the reason. And this clearly, they weren't getting the average peasant angry with the kulaks because the kulaks were living in palatial luxury. They had a house and they had a farm and they had some cows. They were still farmers, but because they had something and the people that had nothing had nothing, and it seemed like so much more, and they were starving and the kulaks weren't, it was easy to turn the peasantry against the kulaks. And what happened? Millions of Ukrainians died because of it. Same thing in China.
Let's jump to the story from the Post-Millennial. Thomas Matthew Crooks may have had an accomplice, says private investigator. We don't think he acted alone. I think the reason this is significant is because when you look at the official narrative, they've never been able to question how this guy was able to carry these materials, his weapon, into this space in Butler, PA, how he was able to bypass all of the police. Post-Millennial writes, would-be assassin of Trump, Thomas Matthew Crooks, may have had an accomplice. The New York Post has reported this comes nearly 9 months since the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. According to the outlet, sources familiar with the matter said the FBI has run interference in trying to find out why Crooks carried out the shooting. The shooter left no manifesto. However, the outlet reported that a private investigator believes a criminal network was working with Crooks at the time of the assassination attempt. Private investigator Doug Hagman told the outlet, we don't think he acted alone. This took a lot of coordination in my view. Crooks was handled by more than one individual, and he was used for this assassination attempt. And I wouldn't preclude the possibility that there were people at the rally itself helping him. Hagman, as well as his team of 6 other investigators, have been working on the case and have interviewed dozens of people. They've also looked into the location of a device that was geolocated to be with Crooks at the time of the shooting. According to their work, the device is still pinging at Bethel Park High School. Interesting. And they go on to mention more about the shooting, but this is not surprising, though I don't know if we're going to learn anything about this. I would not be surprised to find that there are criminal elements operating even within government that allowed this to happen.
It was either, I think, if this is true, the accomplices were either within the intelligence community, meaning FBI, or part of the Iranian assassination plot against Trump. Those, I think, are the 2 most likely options.
I think it has to be internal. I think the only...
That's why I listed that one first.
When we've gone over this story so many times, I'm not surprised to see private investigator with a team of 6 other investigators, or whatever, is saying there's a weird device pinging in this high school, and like he may have had an accomplice. He had to have. We've gone over in great deal the official narrative over and over again. There's no way they've never given. I'm going to pause. They've never given us an official story. They've given us surface level circumstances that happened in Butler, PA, but they have never said, okay, on 9/11. Hijackers at these airports got on these planes with box cutters. They did these things. Flight 93, let's roll. We found the passport. They've given us for 9/11, starting from A, moving through B, ending with C. We know the position of how everything happened. With the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, they have literally never given us an explanation as to how this guy did what he did, got where he was, and got these shots off.
And no motive.
No motive, no plan. They've not explained how there's no A to B. There's no start to finish. There's no story. It's here's some random kid for some reason who shot the president or he did shoot him, and security was missing from every single point of entry, and he flew a drone over this. He flew a drone over the president's rally. There's no explanation. Why? Because there can't be one. There's literally no way to fabricate a scenario where Secret Service allowed a would-be assassin to fly a drone over the president's rally. It makes no sense.
And when there were 2 snipers in the sniper nest and one of them had to leave for some reason, but then forgot his key card and couldn't get back in, and also the water tower was left unmanned, and they couldn't have people on the roof that Thomas Matthew Crooks was on because it was too sloped and it was dangerous, but they were set up on another roof that had the exact same slope.
It's so hard to hear all of the facts like that and not think, okay, this was allowed to happen. Like
They had their eyes on him up until the second that he fired. They
Yeah.
were looking right at him, and we all know that.
The whole time.
It's like to the level of incredulity of like security guards at the Metropolitan Detention Center falling asleep when they were supposed to be watching Epstein in his cell. That's the level, like that's kind of the fool you take me for, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, the previous administration absolutely looked on the average people with disdain. They definitely looked on Trump supporters with disdain. So it's not a surprise that they had that kind of opinion. I am hopeful that we'll find more out with the current administration. I imagine Donald Trump wants to know what happened, considering he's the guy that was actually shot. And I do think that you're making a dubious face. Do you doubt that Trump wants to know?
I was just wondering, I mean, maybe he knows more than we do. Probably he does.
Well, I mean, he's the president, so I assume so. But I do think that the American people have a right to know, whatever the government finds out, considering the only person that was killed was the shooter. If there are other people involved, I would like to know that the government has gone and that the FBI has gone, picked them up, and I would like to see them prosecuted. And if there are people that neglected to do their job in Pennsylvania that day or leading up to it, that those people get fired, so that way it doesn't happen again. And I do believe that that Trump has made changes at the Secret Service. I think, I don't know for sure, but I'm under the impression, I thought that I've heard that story, but it also seems logical that he would. But yeah, I think the American people want to know, and I think the American people have the right to know.
I mean, don't assign to incompetence what can easily be explained by malice. That's what I think. There's no way that this was a failure of just mere incompetence, people taking bathroom breaks when they shouldn't have.
You have it backwards.
No, I got it perfectly in order as I meant it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This was malice, not incompetence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And again, to bring up Stephen Paddock, we don't have an official story on that either.
Yep.
Not that we're the type of people who just take an official story and accept it, but at least if we got an official story from the authorities, we'd have the freedom to accept or reject it, to question it and investigate it for ourselves.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild to me that we're at this place where multiple instances where someone tried to take the life of the front runner for the U.S. presidency. Think about where this country would be if Crooks had succeeded against Donald Trump. I mean, we'd probably be banned.
Oh, yeah.
The show wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
The first month of the Kamala Harris administration would be the exact inversion of Trump. The border would be completely opened. They'd be like, burn it down.
I have a strong suspicion that had Kamala Harris won, and I'm not sure that Kamala Harris would have won if Donald Trump was shot. J.D. Vance would have still run, and it's
Vance
possible.
won.
It's possible that he would have won, and I'm not sure. But had Kamala Harris won, there's no doubt in my mind that shows like this would have been targeted. Like the people here, like Tim personally, definitely. I don't know if I would, but there definitely would have been people that the DOJ would have gone after Tim. Probably would have gone after people like Rogan. Like anyone that was sufficiently critical, or that the administration assumed helped or would have, wasn't helping Kamala Harris, they would have gone after.
And they were already testing the waters in the first term by using these DHS affiliated groups to flag content on social media and send emails to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and telling them which content to remove.
Yep.
And then somehow the courts decided that was fine because the people suing somehow didn't have standing, even though their accounts were taken down. I will never understand that. And then one more point on the assassination attempt. I mean, beyond the fact that the now president was shot in the ear, there was someone who lost his life, an innocent American, Corey Compatore, and multiple other potential victims who were injured by that assassin's bullets. Obviously, the American people deserve to know what happened.
Absolutely. When it comes to, back to the targeting of pundits or political commentary people, like there were people that were in the administration, that were at the DOJ and stuff like that had the job of watching, watching the people that people like Tim. And
they had an entire intern class. I mean, there was an intern who wrote for the Free Press after she left the White House that her job as an intern for the Biden administration at DHS was to flag content that the administration didn't like, even if it was true. Even if it was true.
And considering the fact that the administration was very comfortable with trying to using the Department of Justice to go after its enemies. I mean, that isn't in question. Like, they were using the DOJ to go after, people that had the wrong opinions about January 6th, people that were at January 6th and people that didn't go into the Capitol. They were going after people that were just on the grounds. They were going after parents that were, like we talked about earlier, the parents that were that had an issue with the things that were being told to their children. They had no problem using the FBI and DOJ to go after those people. They would have used the DOJ to go after political pundits nationwide.
And they went after pro-lifers too, pro-life activists for standing too close to the door of an abortion clinic. And I mean,
isn't there a person in jail now because of that?
I think Trump did pardon some of them.
Okay.
I don't know if he.
Why not all?
I think he might have done all of them. I just don't want to say for certain without double checking my facts. But I mean, the other part of this too is I don't know if we're going to get into some of the WHCA stuff that's been happening, but Biden cracked down on the press pretty significantly during his time in office. He stripped White House reporters, 450 of them almost, of their hard passes for no apparent reason, gave them no recourse to get the hard passes back. They locked down the briefing room during COVID. They made journalists pay for their own COVID tests just to get access to the White House campus. Like, they literally had a pay-for-play scenario where you had to pay $150 a day to get a COVID test to get into the briefing room.
Let's dive into this because we have the story from The Hill. White House Correspondents Association head, the public can no longer trust pool reports under White House control. Can I just simplify this for you guys? The White House Correspondents Association, which was basically a news cartel, which was full of individuals who lied the entire time under the first Trump term and under Biden, are now saying we can't trust the pool reports because they don't have control, but some random people might be in there. Are you a member?
I am a member of the White House Correspondents
cartel.
Association. I am in the cartel.
Oh.
I have blue membership, which is the second tier because I don't cover the White House every day. And I've been a member since 2019.
Are they evil?
They're not good people. I can tell you that. Some of them are good people, I assume, as Trump would say. But okay, so the meltdown over this is hilarious because the White House uses the pool system as a means of gatekeeping for legacy media. I mean, really, the entire WHCA is orchestrated to protect the friends among the legacy media and corporate media. I mean, the WHCA, for those who don't know, assigns the seats in the briefing room. The White House doesn't do that. They get to pick all those rows, and they are the ones who put all the corporate media in the first two rows. So those are the people always getting called on at the briefings. And there's a bunch of outlets that don't have seats in the briefing room at all. When I was at The Spectator, I didn't have one. Karine Jean-Pierre didn't call on people in the aisles. So if you didn't have a seat assigned by the WHCA, then you were SOL when it came to getting a question during the Biden admin. But the pool is a rotating group of journalists. There's 30, I believe, in the print pool. And when it's your day, you get to basically go to the events that are technically non-public or not open to the full press. And you report on the events and you send a report to the rest of the press pool so that they can get the information when space is limited and what have you. But the way that they organize the pool is that they're like favorite 30 outlets, and they'll throw in 2 or 3 conservative outlets to make it look fair. Get to go in every day. The cameras get the perfect setup from all of the corporate legacy media outlets. They get to go in first, set up their cameras, and often the pool will collude with each other on what questions they're going to ask before they even go in. So my friend Reagan Reese, who's the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller now, actually witnessed these corporate media journalists saying, if we all go in and just one of us yells a question, then we have a more likely shot of Biden answering it. So we should actually just coordinate on what our one question is going to be among the 6 of us. So it's a joke. And now what the White House Correspondents Association is doing in response to this news that the White House is going to take over the pool rotation is they have now stopped sending pool reports at all. I think they've actually deleted the email, which is like all at whpoolreports.com. And this was seen as so insane by even members of the White House Correspondents Association, because now you get zero access to the White House events that you can't get into as a reporter, that they are now forwarding emails from people who are in the pool now. But they won't refer to it as a pool report anymore because they're so butthurt. Now they're calling it White House notes.
Yeah.
I have reached out to some of our contacts, and I just want to say for everybody who watches this show, it's looking really good for independent access. You may see some big things coming out of the White House with not just us, but many other shows. I think we're going to see some massive changes to how the press is handled. This booting of the White House Correspondents Association is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I despise the journalism industrial complex, and I look forward to periodically hearing a question from a podcaster I've never heard of.
Every last person that was a member of the White House press pool, that was, whether they be a member of the White House Correspondents Association or not, every last person that was in the pool should be permanently barred from the White House,
Except for Daily Caller.
forever, because
No exceptions.
I'll say fine for the purposes of this argument. But Jake Tapper's about to release a book called Original Sin,
Here we go.
and it is about how everyone knew that Joe Biden was a walking corpse. Jake Tapper was instrumental in
You want to
spreading.
pull this up, Serge?
Was instrumental in spreading the Russia collusion BS.
Yes.
These people are in no position, absolutely no position to criticize anyone. They're not in a position to criticize Alex Jones when he was talking about the frogs turning gay.
Well, to be clear, Alex Jones was talking about atrazine.
Yes.
And studies that showed it caused endocrine disruption, and he was in a jokingly kind of way saying it's making them gay.
Yes, it was more true than anything these people
Now
were saying.
they have put up studies after the fact saying they're not sure that atrazine actually was an endocrine disruptor, but we do have. First, I'm going to give you the context. Original Sin: President Biden's decline, its cover-up, and his disastrous choice to run again. Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. Jake Tapper, hero of CNN, exposing the corporate press for covering up Joe Biden. My favorite piece is going to be when Jake Tapper exposes Jake Tapper.
Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have
to
no.
watch somebody on stage
I can't.
search for
It's so amazing.
questions
It's so amazing to me
and try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends.
I'm really excited to read the chapter in his book where he talks about how the media was covering up Joe Biden's cognitive decline, and then he brings up CNN as one of the principal drivers in covering up Joe Biden's decline. And man, when Tapper calls out Jake Tapper for claiming that Biden said a stutter, I'm going to be so excited.
Every last one of them deserves to be homeless and destitute for the rest of their lives.
Well,
so
that's mean. Look,
Yes, I know it's mean.
No. I have no problem if they're making my cheeseburgers for me. Just don't spit in them. The fries, I like them a little well done, a little extra salt.
What's so annoying to me about this is, a lot of people have been saying Alex Thompson was good at this. He is a good reporter. He came out with a piece about Biden's cognitive decline, I believe, before the debate, if not shortly after, and was willing to talk about it when the Democratic Party hadn't decided if it was okay or not yet. That's a little too much credit for Alex Thompson, because from this clip, you see people notice this on the campaign trail in 2020. I mean, I wrote an article, I think in September, ahead of the election, about Biden's schedule being less than a typical 40-hour working week. Like, he was working an average of 30 hours on the campaign trail, running for the most important job in the world. So I don't give Alex Thompson that much credit, but out of the mainstream media journalists, he was one of the better ones in terms of calling out Biden's cognitive decline. And so for him to hitch his wagon to Jake Tapper, who was complicit in the cover-up, I don't know why he would damage his credibility like that unless they're getting a really fat paycheck for this.
Of course they are. How many days Did the Biden administration call a lid at 1
can tell you
p.m.?
that 1
At
second.
1 p.m. How many days did they say Biden has done too much work at 1 in the afternoon?
Yeah, they called it brunch lids. So I wrote this article in July of 2023 called Biden's Bougie Brunch Lid. And it was about the number of brunch lids they were calling. And from a rough count of White House poll reports so far this year, this is from January to July of 2023, they had called a brunch lid 42 times and they called a lunch lid 39 times. That's just in a 6-month period. And the brunch lid apparently got so much backlash after this piece came out that members of the White House communications team and members of the White House Correspondents Association instructed White House correspondents to stop using the term because of the negative optics, saying that it didn't deserve to be in the official record of the White House. They're the ones who came up with it.
None of them deserve any of your sympathy. None of them deserve to be in the White House anymore.
But they do deserve your disdain.
Yes, they do.
But
They've
what if
earned
the
it.
forward is Jake Tapper issuing a mea culpa?
Then I don't care. Not
He's
good
making
enough.
money off it.
Yeah, I don't care.
He also needs to do a mea culpa on the Trump Tower story because he was one of the authors on that and might have won a Pulitzer Prize for it.
Was it Jake Tapper who said you're not allowed to have the DNC emails? That was him, right?
That
Remember?
sounds right.
When the emails got
yeah.
released, it
Yeah.
was. It might have been him. I'm not sure, but
Don't
on
buy his
CNN,
book.
they're like, it's illegal for people to have these emails, so you can't have them, but we are allowed to have them. It's like that's not true.
Don't buy his book. You should definitely pirate it.
No, you should not. Don't read that garbage.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but I'm not surprised that this is what we're getting from the corporate press. The CNN Jake Tapper story is absolutely hilarious. But, I've worked in media for some time now, and I remember going to these events, and going to various universities and news events. These people are the elite of the elite. It is capital city in the Hunger Games. That's who these journalists are. I mean, have you guys seen images of the White House Correspondents Association? What these people dress like? They dress like capital city in the Hunger
Daniels.
Games. Yeah. What is it? Yeah, it's like go watch Hunger
Yeah.
Games in the capital city in the weird clothes. That's what they dress like.
So
they are removed from the regular public. They view themselves as a cartel. They think they're entitled to things. We had who was it on the show? Nick Sorter was saying that he was at the Capitol and someone came up to him yelling him. He wasn't allowed to be there. And he thought it was a staffer or something. Turns out it was a journalist. And he was like, what? Like, why are they yelling at me? What? Because they think they're entitled.
Yeah, and Eugene Daniels is the person you're most referring to because he's the president of the White House Correspondents Association, and there's been pictures circulating of some of his outfit choices and his painted nails and things of that nature. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. But he actually asked the Daily Caller to sign on to the Associated Press's defense letter when the Trump administration said you're no longer allowed to cover Oval Office events or fly on Air Force One. And I was like, we would never sign your letter because you did nothing the past 4 years when Biden clamped down on access on independent and conservative outlets. He hit me back and was like, I'd love to talk about how we can better support you. And I responded, I'm like, sure, I'll talk to you. No reply, ghosted me. So he only cared when it was to benefit his friends at the Associated Press. And then as soon as that letter was out, I was useless to him again.
They deserve your disdain. You should not feel bad for any of them. They should not be allowed access because I've said this before. The thing that these people want more than anything else is access. They want to be the cool insiders in D.C.
Well,
they want to go to the White House Correspondents' Dinner and get dressed up in ballroom regalia.
And that's what blue check Twitter verification was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why it was overwhelmingly journalists that were verified on Twitter before Elon took it. They intentionally, Twitter was smart about this. They said, these are people who control the flow of information through these media outlets. Let's suck up to them and make them feel special so they will pander to us. And that's how they would try to get favorable news coverage in the way they wanted it. And then Elon took their blue checks away and they cried so hard. It was really funny because there'd be, I remember the Wall Street Journal had a reporter with 200 followers and he was verified. And there's a lot of prominent individuals in independent media. So for me, my story was, and I look, people are like, Tim's just telling us another story about himself, but I don't know anybody else or their stories. I mean, like, no one's told me the stories about how they got screwed over, how verified. I had 30-something thousand followers. I had a bunch of videos, and activists were like, why aren't these people being verified? I wasn't working for anybody. That was the reason. It wasn't until I joined Vice that Vice called Twitter and said, verify Tim Pool, and overnight had a verification. These same activists were upset because they were like, here's a guy with 200 followers who's verified and nobody knows who he is. And he was an editor at the Wall Street Journal. Why was he verified? Because he was a journalist, and journalists are special people.
That's right. I had one of those.
See?
Yep.
You were a
true.
special verification.
Yeah, confirm. Yep.
How did you get verified?
Because I worked for a news outlet.
And they called Twitter and said, do it?
There was some submission form.
What? Really? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. This was in 2017 or 18, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Early on, they had the submission forms you could submit to verify. The original intention of it was anybody could verify their accounts to prove they were who they said they were. And then they deactivated the ability to do it because too many people were doing it, I guess, and they didn't want to pay for it. So then they had an editorial team giving badges to people, and verification didn't mean you were who you were. It meant special person.
I must have gotten in before that, but I do remember the submission form said something to the effect of if you are like a public figure, particularly a journalist, then you get.
I think
you're
they
more likely to get it.
Yeah, I think they eventually rolled something like that out.
Okay.
But when I got verified, it was 2013, and there was no way to do it. Vice employees literally called Twitter on the phone and said, verify Tim Pool, and they went, okay. And then they were like, you're good. I went to my phone, opened up, like, got it. There's my blue check mark.
I don't know. I don't remember exactly.
It gave you special features too.
It did. I don't remember when I got mine, but I know that it was because of the ban. So, because
Wait, you got it before Elon took over?
Oh well, yeah. Well, I had it in like 2012 or something.
So you had like a social media manager that did it?
No,
Or-
not that I'm aware of.
No, the thing was for celebrities, music, bands, actors, or whatever, they were intentionally every day seeking them out to verify them because they wanted to give the platform credibility.
That's right.
They wanted to say, hey, Phil, look, you're special, right? And then that would encourage him to tell people, come here. I got to tell
now
you.
they can go be special on Blue Sky.
Well, yes, absolutely. I got into parties with the verification badge.
That's crazy.
I'm verified and decided I worked for Vice. And so I went to a party and I'm like, sorry, you can't come in. And I was like, hey, here's my phone. And
People
they were
thought
like,
it was
oh.
a big deal. Yeah, it was supposedly a big deal, and then the journalists ruined it because they thought that it made them special. But I mean,
They
one
were
other
never
thing
special.
about the WHCA that I find so funny is like you're talking about mostly the people who appear on camera are dressed like they're in the Hunger Games and they love to go to these parties. But then there's this other smaller subset of the legacy media that does not appear on camera. And these people are complete slobs. Like I'm not even kidding you when I say like they make probably more money than, I mean, not this room, sorry, but in general, they make a lot of money for people who just like work normal jobs. And yet they were dressed in like the most ill-fitting, like falling apart at the seams clothes. They would leave their trash everywhere. The bathroom's constantly out of order in the briefing room. There's like rats and there's water stains and it was just a gross place to be. And these people like took no pride in themselves. And so watching them write these articles where they're like snarking on everyday Americans and looking at them with such contempt, I'm like, have you looked in the mirror lately? Like you are apparently what you hate.
I'll give you guys some numbers. I don't know if did I ever give the salary numbers from Fusion before?
No.
It's been 10 years. It's been longer than that. They wrote me a check for $200,000, $250,000 a year salary for 2 years, plus I believe a $3 million budget. So when they recruited me, they were like, they slid a piece of paper across the table, and I was like, sure, that's a lot of money. Vice didn't pay that well. Vice gave me $100,000. Yeah. And
100 grand, 12 years ago, 13 years ago?
I mean, I was 26 or 27. So when they said, we'll give you $100,000 and we'll fly, like Vice was cool. I mean, they were like, you can go anywhere in the world you want, whenever you want, and we'll pay you $100,000 to do it. And I was like, sign me up.
100 grand's like 60 now.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. So it was good. And then Fusion basically said, we're gonna do the exact same thing Vice did for you, but more money. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I basically just didn't spend any of it and just used it to launch a company. But that's why, Luke Rudkowski was like, Tim, don't do it. Don't join the corporate press. Because Fusion was basically ABC News. And I was working out of the ABC News building. Whoopi Goldberg would be in the elevator like every day. I'd be like standing next to Whoopi Goldberg and be like, hey, Star Trek was great. And I got to go and like look at The View and everything they got going on. And there's always people outside. Luke was like, don't do it, Tim. They're evil. And then I was like, bro, I'm going to go work for this company. It's going to pay me stupid money. And then afterwards, I'm going to do my own thing for as long as I need to and as long as I want. And with the money I had left over, I was able to just do whatever I wanted. Fly to Sweden, you know. I didn't have as much, like, they're paying me a salary. Obviously, I had to pay my rent, pay my bills, and you know, pay costs and stuff like that. But I basically used the money to buy a computer, buy cameras, start setting things up. Took a little while, but I had a savings to live off of. So there you go. There's numbers. And you're probably going like, holy crap, that's a lot of money to be paid by a news outlet. I mean, yeah, and that was low. Like, I didn't negotiate. One of the other guys that worked for Fusion was getting $500,000 a year. A regular journalist. You probably wouldn't even know his name if I said it. I'm not gonna. Some guy never. I mean, he wasn't a dick. He was a nice guy. Like, I'm not gonna rag on him. I don't know what he's doing now, and he's never mean to me. So there's no reason for me to just, you know, throw shade at people. But yeah, no joke. They hire a guy and they're like, "We'll give you $500,000 a year," and he's like, "Okay." That's the kind of stuff they do at these companies. It's mind blowing.
You've seen like mass layoffs at almost all of these outlets by now, though, and that era is definitively over.
Well, you know, to be honest, they weren't making money. You know, Fusion had, I think, I was told $300 million in investment from very powerful interests, and they did not care how it was spent.
Yeah, most of the big outlets are being bankrolled by someone. Very few of them are actually profitable.
Yeah. Well, let's go to Super Chats, my friends. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know. Become a member of Rumble Premium. Go to timcastpremium.com, and that will redirect you right to Rumble to sign up. Use promo code TIM10 because the uncensored call-in show is coming up in about 20 minutes. And we are going to take your calls and your comments, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We also have the Green Room show. We didn't get one in today because today was absolutely crazy. I was on the phone all day. Just nuts. But we do usually have the Green Room podcast up Monday through Friday, premium members only, plus our feature-length documentaries. Let's grab some Super Chats. The Common Neighbor says, these files reveal water is wet. I hadn't known that. Joe Spinell says, yeah, rogue agents, hook, line, and sinker to all the influencers. That's the front. The files will now be gone forever. There's the cover-up. I think you've all been had. I got to say, people are pissed on X. You know, Mary was not wrong. The anger
I'm
at the...
pissed on X.
There you go. That's a happening.
That's a happening.
The influencers that came out all smiling and like holding up their binders, I'm like, wow, man, they're getting roasted. Because people are pointing out, it's like you were handed a prop by the White House, walked out into the press, and then you all giggled and smiled and showed off these binders. Not everyone did, but even the people who didn't are getting ragged on. And that's not fair. That's some of the people who were there had no idea, and I respect them. And I'm not mad at any of them. You know what I mean? Like, that's what happens, right? Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, do you think the influencer's photo op of the Phase 1 Nothing Burger is the first L of the Trump administration? MAGA is divided on that one. Yeah, maybe. I don't know what they were thinking, honestly. I was talking to a couple of people on the phone, and I said, I think this was a stunt. Like, because they were saying, like, we had no idea this was happening. And I was like, yeah, look at the photos that are coming out, man. It's not looking good. This is crazy. Very weird. Very weird. I wonder what the intention was. You know, I'll just say this. White House, if they want to do stunts that make an impact and work, they should never have distanced themselves from Laura Loomer. I'm not joking.
Have her handcuff herself to the SDNY headquarters.
That is a phenomenal point.
But think about that move when she handcuffed herself to Twitter HQ. There's nothing more to it. It just generated a mass amount of attention on an issue. The problem with this stunt at the White House today is that people feel like they've been tricked. Mm-hmm. You know, they feel that they've been had. If Pan Bondi just gave Laura Loomer the binder and let Laura go off with it, the news would have been way more favorable to them. It would have been like, where's the rest of it? But still better than whatever this stunt was. C'est la vie. I'm not crying about it, guys. I mean, even though I would say it's not overall a good day for whatever they were trying to pull off, tomorrow is another day and there should be developments. And other than that, I'm way too happy with the Trump administration to be all that bent out of shape.
I really do think, look, if tomorrow there's substance, all this will be forgotten about. if they have substance, if they have some like actual things to report, and there's actual evidence that comes out, and they have, if there's a substantial drop, or if Internal Affairs kicks in the doors of the FBI office in the Southern District of New York, that will be substance as well.
I'm going to need you, Phil, for this one. James Herenson says, Herenson, congrats, Tim, on the baby, but it's sad to see that you didn't honor the tradition of watching the show and super chatting while your wife was in labor.
Yeah, he did. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
We did. I don't think we read it, but he did super chat.
The chat was
Why
blowing
didn't
up.
you read it?
It was at like it was at
least you can
it was at
do.
8:15, and I super chatted $100.
No, I kept looking for it that day, and I couldn't find it in the chat. I scrolled up and down numerous times, and it wasn't.
8:15, $100 super chat from me, and the chat was blowing up, all saying "Congrats, Tim! Congrats, Tim!" And
I did.
I'm aware. I also looked at it. I tried to get it, and when I went back to and kept looking for it over and over and over again, it wasn't shown. I imagine it was auto-modded by YouTube for they don't want brigading and stuff like that. They see 300 plus. That's what I'm assuming because I checked it numerous times. Because I'd seen it come in earlier, and I couldn't obviously stop to say, "Hey guys, just so you know, Tim did the meme. I didn't want to do that." Yeah,
but I did. Kellen said he saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was chatting with people, you know. So I'm sorry you missed it, sir, but of course I super chatted. And it was a crazy story. If you want to hear the story, it's on the Green Room podcast. Which episode of the Green Room one was that? Let me try and pull that one up so I can direct y'all in the right direction.
Last Friday, right?
Was it? Well, was it the Green Room? It wasn't the Green Room on Friday. It would have been Monday. Was it this Monday? I think it would have been this Monday. The Green Room, and it was
Yeah, because you were back on Monday.
Joey Manarino. Yeah. So episode Green Room number 88 with Joey Manarino, fatherhood, children, the importance of family. Go to rumble.com/ I'll just pull it up right here. You can see it. Rumble.com/ Timcast IRL. Watch this Green Room episode. I mean, the Green Room, it's really taken off. We're getting 40,000 plus views on these episodes. It's massive. And this is Rumble Premium only. Super cool, guys. Very, very cool.
Chuck's a great conversationalist. Like
I know. Yeah, he's great. He's great. He just you know, he's a genuine guy who's interested in these guests he's never met before, and then he asks the questions that bring you home. But I came in for the first time after having a kid, and they asked questions, and I answered them. So there you go. If you want to hear the story about how it all went down. It's like it's 3 a.m. and I'm sleeping, and I have this thing called a sleep sanity. I recommend it. It is I got an ad on Instagram. Oh, let me tell you about Instagram, guys. I get these ads on Instagram, and I'm just smacking the buy button. No matter what.
Their algorithm is really good.
They've got it down.
So I recently bought a pair of exoskeleton legs because of Instagram. And I'm like, we're going to...
Meanwhile, I'm getting like dresses, makeup.
Carbon fiber exo legs that increase jump strength by 40%.
I got pots and pans.
You could be a basketball player now.
Made in skillets, and
so we're gonna experiment with these things and see how they improve our ability to skateboard, because it's got an AI that like tracks your gait and movement and predicts where you're going, and then motors will help you lift your legs up.
Gosh,
super crazy. But anyway, I was on Instagram and this thing called Sleep Sanity was advertised to me. It is a headband that covers your ears, and it's not a blindfold. It has some kind of visor screen that when you turn on, it dims. It's darker. Yeah, it's super cool. And then it has orange glowing light around it, which stimulates melatonin production. And the headphones will play whatever sound you want or no sound at all. So I have, before bed, I put this thing on. All sound is gone. And then it sounds like I'm standing in the Grand Canyon at night. It's playing like this wind blowing, and it glows yellow. And then I'm out like a rock. My deep sleep has increased by like 20%.
My husband has sleep
crazy.
apnea, so I might need that.
You can't hear anything. It's great.
Yeah, because I have earplugs that I put in every night, and I think they damage your hearing.
Yeah. And the best thing is, even though I have them, I'm fairly certain the baby hasn't cried once. I mean, when I wake up, Allison's hair is all messed up, and her eyes have dark rings under them. But that's just, something else.
Hey, Tim, before you get back into it, Hung Kao just posted a tweet from Donald Trump, or a truth from Donald Trump. I am pleased to announce that Hung Kao will be our next United States Undersecretary of the Navy.
Wow.
Hung is the embodiment of the American dream. As a refugee to our great nation, Hung worked tirelessly to make proud the country that gave his family a home. He went to our amazing United States Naval Academy and later earned his master's degree in physics. Hung served in combat as a special operations officer for 25 years. With Hung's experience both both in combat and in the Pentagon. He will get the job done. Congratulations to Hung and his wonderful family. That's a great
You know,
Good for him.
I'm a big fan, and I firmly believe that he would have won if he came on Timcast IRL. But he
I
didn't.
really wish he would have.
Well,
As a Virginia resident.
To be fair, I don't think we actually tried really hard to get him on the show. I think I just tweeted about it one time, and I'm not sure we actually reached out. We might have, but his ad was amazing. Yeah, the knocking on the door, fleeing Vietnam when the communists are coming.
Yep.
That dude's great. Congratulations to Hung Kao. All right, Garrett says, call up the 101st Air Assault, secure the roof, set up man pads to prevent helicopter rescue and secure all entrances. Go through SDNY as a terror cell.
Bro.
Arrest them, he says. Arrest them all. All right. I'm not your buddy guy says if evidence and truth matter, Derek Chauvin would never have gone to jail. Public opinion is all that matters. Phase 1 means more to come. Indeed. And Mike Cernovich was talking about this. He said Pam Bondi is doing her best, and I genuinely believe SDNY is a rogue element.
Yeah.
Let's get some of these Rumble rants. We got Torched Medic. If the agency tasked with enforcing the law does not want to do that and instead plays politics, conspire against rights, and go rogue, it's time to send the military to arrest them. No. Other feds. Military posse comitatus. We don't want to do that. The FBI should arrest the FBI.
Yeah.
There's a tweet that Mike Ben sent out, by the way, with an excerpt from a 2014 CNN documentary about Whitey Bulger. And it says how the FBI hides critical damning evidence about FBI informants from outside oversight or awareness by creating separate sets of FBI books for the same informant and then putting the actual damning version in a special eyes-only safe only 2 people are ever allowed to access.
Whoa.
No good.
Interesting. Protocaster says a company I work with is pursuing a lawsuit with the DNC because the DNC is refusing to pay their contract from one of the DNC events. Good to know they're consistent, I guess. Well, why would they? They lost the election. They ain't paying nothing. Nicholson says, remind Mary that executive orders are like free samples to let people see what they like and then help move polling for the laws to get passed. Plus, we need an immediate win.
Free samples. I
It's a
love
Sam's
that.
Club for dinner.
I know, right? That's a great line.
IKY says, you called it, Tim. Media boosting leftist podcasters. Slate article. Who's afraid of Hassan Piker? He's hot. He's dangerous. Young men actually listen to him. Is he what Democrats are looking for? Sure, I guess.
Look,
He's
man.
not hot though.
If they want to go ahead and lift up Hassan Piker, more power to him. It's only a matter of time before he says something else completely ridiculous that is completely out of step with the American people. So yes, DNC, get behind that man, throw a bunch of money in him, and then next time he says something crazy like the United States deserved 9/11, they'll go ahead and you can spread that throughout the country and further discredit your entire political party.
All right. Pinochet says, James Comey's daughter prosecuted Maxwell. The trial was a farce, a scripted, orchestrated farce. She prosecuted the case, but kept doors closed and assured nobody would ask questions. You know, did you guys see that Megyn Kelly insinuated Epstein's alive?
Pardon me?
You didn't see that?
Saying what exactly?
No.
On her podcast last week, she said she has a lot of information pertaining to Epstein, which you're going to hear from a lot of people, maybe even Epstein himself.
What? But that's
Maybe-
audio recordings
Exactly.
or video, yeah.
But
a lot of people think that Anthony Bourdain was the body double. I'm not kidding.
They're like, how do we secretly get Epstein out of jail? We need a body double, but the only one is Anthony Bourdain.
We have such a striking resemblance from the profile, you know? No, people really did claim that at the time.
And there's that meme where it shows the political compass, and it's Epstein, Hunter Biden, Anthony Bourdain, and I don't know who the other person was, but they have a quarter of their face in each of them, and they all say that they look kind of similar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's go. What do we got? Lucky Chariot says there's files posted to the FBI Vault website. I haven't read through them all, but there's 22 parts. Are people saying there's more that hasn't been released? Yeah, so Pam Bondi put out new information, but it's not incriminating. So there's a lot of new information. You can look at the flight logs, but it doesn't prove anything. So Trump and his family apparently flew on Epstein's plane. There's 2 stories. One is that he was getting a ride to Atlantic City and that Epstein wasn't even on the plane. I don't know for sure. The question is, did they fly to the island? That's what I would like to know. And I got to be honest, guys, I don't care if Trump is on the list. Release it. these liberals are like, oh yeah, well Trump's on the list. I'm like, wow, really? Let me see it.
Get him. Get him then.
Yeah, let me see the list. I'm here. I don't think anyone's arguing against that. It's like,
Oh, he's a child rapist, but he's a Republican.
It's like,
publish the list.
You're not going to hear people say, well, he's a child rapist, but he's our child rapist. No, they're going to say, take him to jail.
We have jail. All right, we got Bill A. says, I'm a simple trucker from Oklahoma. I think, yeah, it would be nice to know the terrible people who were involved in the Epstein Island thing, but I'm more worried about our economy and the border. That was what you were saying, Mary, and I think you're right. It is kind of interesting that Pam Bondi made this story happen. She didn't have to.
It's a chronically online issue that no one in the real world thinks or talks about. I wish they would, but they don't.
This morning, I was talking with Sean, and I was like, we got this transgender story is really big that Trump booted. They issued a filing saying all transgender personnel will be separated from the military. And I was like, is that the big story, or do we just talk about the Epstein stuff because the files haven't come out yet? And there's word that documents are coming out today. And Sean was like, I don't think people really care all that much about like this ongoing Epstein story. Like the views aren't there. People don't pay attention to it. And I was like, maybe we'd be better off waiting until we get definitive information on Epstein. And so I was sitting here waiting like longer than normal, for news to break. And we opted to open the morning show with the transgender military stuff. Yeah.
I found it so sinister that the phrase Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself became a meme because it started out with people actually stating that in earnest when they had reason to believe it. And it just turned into a meme that meant nothing anymore, and it became a laughingstock.
You don't think that the people
lost its context in the process?
You think people that say it don't actually believe it?
What I mean is it was said in earnest at first, and then once it became a meme, the context was stripped from the statement and what it really meant, and the seriousness of it was lost.
I agree completely.
I think I agree.
And I think that was almost intentional. You notice how like none of the Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself memes were censored on social media. They were allowed to reign free.
They were censored on YouTube.
As far as I could tell.
I agree that
you couldn't on YouTube.
I agree that it tamped down the seriousness, but I think it became a meme because it was so obviously true.
I think I'm with you. I think that it was kind of like everyone was like, of course. I really do feel like
what did he
everybody
do, like hang himself with toilet paper or something?
Yeah, something. It was. I don't think it was.
Might as well.
It was ridiculous. And the only time the camera goes off just for the amount of time necessary for the man to shuffle loose this mortal coil, and so
I would like to pull up this here image from Message from the Minefield. Of a super chat from Tim Poole. It says, howdy, Timcast friends. I'm currently in the hospital waiting for my first child to be born. Let's go. And how dare you impugn my honor? There it is.
Real fan.
That's right.
637 thumbs up. People were saying like, woo, you go, Tim. And it was very difficult for me. I mean, I had to sit on a couch and watch sci-fi for like 12 hours.
Is that how long she was in labor?
So tough. Must have been so hard for you, Tim.
Oh man, my stomach hurt from the hospital food, and I'm like,
it's also like the sympathy pains,
The what?
That's right.
Sympathy pains.
What sympathy for what?
No, but special heartfelt thank you to Allison. She is incredible, and she is currently taking care of the baby while I do work, and she definitely has FOMO. Because she works here too, and she does all the administrative stuff, so she's always in and out working. But now she's on a small maternity leave, sort of. I mean, I still see her every day, but baby can't go anywhere just yet. Baby's only a week old, so there's a lot of things that have to be taken care of for baby. And this is a true story. The other day we were watching The Five, as I do every day, and I'm not kidding. Baby was sleeping. Greg Gutfeld starts talking, and she looks over at the TV and opens her eyes, which, for a week-old, like, the eyes are closed all the time. It's, like too bright. And starts just staring at Greg Gutfeld as he talks. The camera changed. I'm not going to say to who because I don't want to be mean to them, but baby started crying. And
was
then
it Jessica Tarlov?
No, I don't think she was on. I think Harold Ford Jr. was on the show at that time. It goes to commercial, and baby just goes off and is crying, and we're thinking, okay, maybe it's a diaper change thing. And then, as we're taking care of baby, it comes back onto the 5, and Greg Gutfeld leads, and Baby immediately turns to the TV again, looking, and then just stares at Greg Gutfeld, and we all started laughing, and Allison's mom was like, she loves Greg. And
enamored.
Then it cut away from Greg after about a minute of him doing like, it was like the one more thing or whatever it was, and then Baby started crying again. And we were like, I don't know why this baby likes Greg Gutfeld so much, but I tweeted, you know, my daughter knows who the real talent on the 5 is. There you go. But I'm not exaggerating in any way. That's literally what happened. We thought it was hilarious, so I tweeted.
Harold Ford Jr. is like completely reasonable for a Democrat.
But I think Tarlov and Ford Jr. are fake people. Like, I'm sorry, man. Tarlov is a bit more insufferable, with all due respect, than Harold Ford Jr. He does seem reasonable. But how can you sit next to 4 people who are correct and then keep being wrong? I don't get it. Well, maybe we could ask Ian. Ha-ha! I got him. Zing. No, but like for Tarlov, she's sitting there and it's like, yo, they fact-checked everything they're showing you. How could you keep disagreeing with them? It's like she's just doing it.
She's wrong.
Well, they pay her to be. They're like, you're the heel, you know?
Yeah. Well, it was like the Handy and Combs, like Combs would sit there and he was there to get beat up, and he did a good job of it.
Let's grab we got time for maybe 1 or 2 more. Based African says Phil is incorrect. Kamala would not have run against JD, as he had not been announced yet. Would have gone to RNC runner-up, I believe, Nikki Haley. That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, would have gone to Nikki Haley.
Yeah, I
Fair
meant
enough.
to mention that, but I didn't want to. We were already off to something else.
That's fine.
But then it makes me think, well, I don't know, were there interests not on the left? Interests that wanted Nikki Haley to be the nominee?
I don't know.
No one says the story earlier about Andrew Tate and Ron DeSantis was at a press conference called to shine a light on amazing work the Florida State Guard has been doing in the past few years. Rescue, respond, serve, go FSG. Do you guys hear that Tate's in town? He's in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I got to be honest, like, I don't follow the controversy surrounding Andrew Tate. I've seen some clips, but that's not enough evidence for me to accuse him of anything other than the clips I saw were kind of like, they were horrible. But I don't know. What I can tell you is all these conservatives saying don't associate, stay away from Tate and all that stuff. I'm like, if you concede this battleground to Andrew Tate and just let him have the minds of all these young men, he won. I don't understand what their argument is.
Well, the argument is he made his money by doing, by being
by
an
pimping and trafficking.
Yeah, by pimping and trafficking. So like that right there is good enough reason to be like, yo, you shouldn't associate with this.
No, because if he's got 10 million followers that are young men and you're like, I'm going to show him, I'm not going to talk to him. It's like, he's got more followers than you, bro. You need to convince the young men following him, assuming what you're saying about Tate is true, you need to communicate to his audience. So you need him to sit down with you on your platform so you can challenge him on these ideas and explain why he's wrong. If you say, I'm not going to associate that with that guy, well, he's already winning. He's extremely wealthy. He's got 10 million plus followers just on X alone, not to mention all of his other platforms. If you just ignore him, you're not doing anything. You're not challenging the ideas. It's absurd to me. So by all means, don't like the guy, but you have to enter the arena of ideas and debate for your victory.
Yeah,
I'll give you one. Andrew Tate said on X, men should have as many kids with as many women as possible, and you're a conqueror. The Western world and the greatest civilization known to man was built by monogamy. That's it. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. So all these young men out there that are agreeing with him on that regard, he's not correct. He's got some good talking points. But again, I don't really follow much of the controversy around him. I don't know.
Yeah, there was my thing was like, look, when you say, go and have as many kids as you possibly can with as many women as you can, like that doesn't raise children. And we need children that are raised in families that are well adjusted. Like, be a father. That's how you win.
Indeed.
Not by just, going around and inseminating women.
Yeah,
We're gonna go to the uncensored call-in show, and if you'd like to join us, go to rumble.com/Timcast IRL and sign up for Rumble Premium, because this show is exclusive, but it's going to be fun. When we're over on Rumble, it's not so family-friendly, but it's always fun and funny. We hope to see you there. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Share the show with everyone you know if you do enjoy it. Amber, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, just follow me on social media at Amber Marie Duke and check out the Daily Caller, dailycaller.com. Thanks, y'all.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Mary Archived, and also go subscribe to Pop Culture Crisis. We go live every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Listen, validation is what Instagram is for,
Right.
and criticism is on X. So,
But also, please like me.
Yeah.
I really just want you to like me.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. Our new record dropped on January 31st. It is called Anti-Fragile. You can check it out on YouTube, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. Don't forget the left lane is for crime.
We will see you all over at rumble.com/TimcastIRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out.